Tonight, we have a very special and precious guest. All the way from Australia, we have Bodhidasa. And I am personally completely delighted to be introducing Bodhidasa to you, because Bodhidasa and I were ordained together. So I can say with absolute certainty that Bodhidasa was ordained in 2014 because we were on the same ordination course. So we spent 4 months in a valley in Spain on retreat, during which we were both ordained. And it was an absolute delight to spend that amount of time in those beautiful, gorgeous, supportive conditions with such a fantastic array of men, one of whom is Bodhidasa. Another one of whom you may know is Tejasidi. He was also on the same. Sadly, he can't be here with us this evening. So Bodhidasa is over from Australia, which is very lovely, but he does have a purpose, because he's not been idle since 2014. He has written this book called Approaching Enlightenment, which was published by Winters, and I've read my copy. This is my copy, which I've read, and I can heartily recommend this book. I really, really, really wish somebody had written this 20 odd years ago when I was struggling endlessly through what felt like non-stop pujas every time I went on retreat. At the beginning of the book, Bodhidasa outlines his friend Callista as a little kind of story of how we can have some resistance to symbolism and ritual. We can come along to the Buddhist Center and enjoy meditation and making friends and study groups and all the serious things, and we think that that is our spiritual life. And there's all these faldalaus over in the corner, like pujas and strange images of Indo-Tibetan figures, none of which we feel is of any importance to us. We're far too busy doing the serious business. One of the things, and that was me, that was my position, but one of the things that Bodhidasa does so well and so skillfully in this book is kind of explain and exemplify and illustrate how there is a correlation between all the serious Buddhist lists that we love. We love a good list. These serious lists and the practices of puja in particular, but devotion, symbolism in general, how they are not divorced, one over here and one over there. There's a direct correlation between them. There's a learning, there's a crossover from one to the other. This is brought out incredibly skillfully in this book. But one of the things, just on a personal note, one of the things that really, really moved me about this book was I just got such a strong sense of Bodhidasa's growth since 10 years ago, 10 and a bit years ago. We spent those 4 months in the mountain, wondering what we were doing, why we were there. They've made a mistake. It shouldn't be me that's here. It should be somebody else. All those things that went through all of our minds at times during those 4 months. The growth between then and the writing of this book, for me, was just palpable in the pages of this book. And I just found it really, really moving to experience and witness through the words in the pages that growth. So I'm absolutely chuffed to bits to introduce Bodhidasa, who will be giving us a bit more illumination of the subject of his book. And of course, his name, Bodhidasa, I need to say, means he who serves enlightenment, or
He was the servant of enlightenment.
the servant of enlightenment. Who better, who better to explain all this than he who is the servant of enlightenment? So, Bodhidasa.
So, before I begin, I think it's prudent to remember that none of us would have met if it wasn't for a man in India 2,600 years ago. And that whatever insights or ideas that I share are fueled by the insights of Buddha himself. And again, we would never have crossed paths. And I think that's something that is worth remembering from time to time, that there's been an ongoing impetus and momentum since that moment in India under the Bodhi tree. And the impact of that we are still experiencing today. So I wish to acknowledge that. I also wish to acknowledge Urgyen Sangharakshita, my teacher to many in this room, who I met several times. I'm very lucky enough to have met several times. And I recount this in the book. I don't know about any of you who may be in the ordination process. Sometimes order members like to tell you things. They like to provide feedback to you. And I, being a bit of a bolshy Australian, didn't really like being told that maybe I needed to change and maybe, I needed to be a little bit more receptive. And I thought, I don't like this. So I'm going to my teacher and he can tell me to tell them things. So I went to Sangharakshita and I had a big complaint about the order members in Sydney because, that's what I thought was appropriate. And he and I said, oh, it's just not fair, they tell me this and they tell me that, and it's so distressing, I just don't know, all this study and all this reading and what I really want to do. And he said, yes, what do you really want to do? I just want to worship. I want to do puja. That is where I vanish. So do puja then, he said. And so they have done that ever since, every day. And the more you do it, the more you see and the more you find. And I'll share a bit of that with you tonight. But essentially, I just want to acknowledge Urgyen Sangharakshita and also my preceptor, Ratnavyuha, my private preceptor, and my public preceptor, Nagabodhi. Again, without them and their ongoing influence in my life, I would not be here. So, I wonder why you're here tonight. Would anyone care to share?
Because I don't like puja.
Because you don't like puja.
Yeah, so I know I should try to change that.
Just take that out. What was your name? You don't like puja. Okay, can I get a show of hands who doesn't like puja? 1, 2, 3. Oh, hands being put down. Someone's autonomy. Okay, so we have a minority. We have a minority of not liking puja. Okay. Not liking puja. Here's a question for you. Do you need to like it? You shook your head. Say more.
Possibly not. So.
Possibly. You went from shaking your head to possibly not. Is it going to change again? Say more about possibly not.
I mean, I think I should do it, even though I don't like it. That's why I'm here. I need more impetus.
You should
more
do
motivation. Yeah, I think it might be good for me. Yes.
You think it might be good for you, or other people told you that it might be good for you?
No, I think I recognise that.
All right. What's your name?
Josh.
Josh. So you don't like it. Okay, we got someone else doesn't like it. Who else doesn't like it? I saw another hand. Okay. How would you respond? Why are you here tonight? Because
it just doesn't do anything for me. Well, mantras do, but pujas,
it
let's be honest,
doesn't do anything for me. And what's your name?
Vadaka,
Vardika. How long have you been ordained, sir?
25 years. And I was ordained with Ratnapura.
I will pass that on. It doesn't, quote you correctly, it doesn't do anything for me.
Generally, that's true.
Right. So Josh doesn't like it. Vardika doesn't do anything for me. Okay, anyone else? No reason I'm taking notes, I promise.
I'm very much with Bodhidasa.
You're very much at Vardika?
I don't, yeah, it doesn't do anything for me level. So that would be a very good phrase.
And your name, sir?
Bodhidasa.
Does Sagramati know that we have two order members with the same name? I wonder. Thank you. I was wondering if you'd be confessing some untruthful speech. Savajit. Okay, good. We don't like it. It doesn't do anything for me. All right. That's on one side of the court. Anyone else have a different reason for being here? It's going to be a long night.
Learn. Tuesday would always be.
So down here, so you said to learn.
Yeah, to learn.
What specifically do you hope you will learn?
Well, I didn't know what the topic was today. I just turned up with you for it. Just generally to learn.
Okay. Generally to learn. And what was your name?
Akash.
Prakash. This is your first night here?
No.
No?
I've been here a few times.
A few times before. Okay, to learn. Okay. Going, gone. Oh, yeah, one more.
After a few years of struggling with puja, I find out that it connects me much more to my values and my sense of purpose in life in mysterious ways, which I'm hoping we're going to explain in language.
Okay. And again, your name, sir. Got me good.
Dharma Chanda.
Chandy. Yes, we've seen each other on Instagram. Okay. Okay. So we'll come back to some of these. I'd like to give you, if you're interested, in a little bit of why I wrote this book and who am I anyway, and who do I think I am, upstart Australian, how do I know anything about puja and why is it me? Why did I write it? Would that be of interest to anyone? Okay. So let me set a timer for myself because have Kesa will talk. Sorry, that was a bit rude. Let me set myself 10 minutes. Okay. So the risk of sounding like a therapy session, I grew up in an abusive household with no power whatsoever and no ability to have my own thoughts, feelings, and emotions because they were prescribed by somebody else. And my life became unbearable. And so many people at this point in their lives when they're about, 10 or 11 or 12, do what I did, and that was lose myself in books. We are talking in the 1970s at this point. And I lost myself in Tolkien's work, which introduced me to his wonderful work with languages and particularly to the Dwarvic runes. That was my gateway drug into paganism. And for 16 years of my life, I lived as a Norse pagan. So many a rune I have cut, and many a circle have I cast, and many a deity have I supplicated. And it gave my young teenage self a sense that I had power. I had power. over the very things that I did not have power over in the real life, my real world. You know, it's a wonderful faith to have, to be a pagan, particularly in Australia, where it's so easy to accessorize a religion, particularly that variety of religion that I have. But it is increasingly challenging in Australia to practice that faith when the majority of people who practice it are neo-Nazi homophobes. So I did find it very difficult. But the main thing that was the problem was I wasn't doing any of the inner work. I had no tools by which I might do any of that inner work. I had lots of rituals to do external things, but very little capacity to do it inside. And for me, I suffered from incredible crippling depression, despite all this, and had no way out other than this kind of bizarre way of living my life. And it just so happened that I was on going driving with some friends for a weekend, and we visited a very large Taiwanese Buddhist temple. And I was particularly low at this point. I had contemplated self-harm. I was very miserable and still kind of pagan. And I remember ascending the stairs, feeling particularly low into this temple. And before me in this temple and all the other people there was a standing figure. And I had never encountered anything like this before. It was a standing figure with an inordinately large amount of arms. Many of you may know the image of which I speak. The arms had hands, and in the hands were eyes. And it had 11 heads. And it was white, and it was surrounded by glowing lights. And although it ostensibly was made out of fiberglass, quite crude, its eyes were wet with tears, and I saw it, and it saw me, and I could not move. I was frozen in space, and all I wanted to do was understand it. And I knew deep in my mind, as in words and also in my heart, that one of those hands had something that I needed, and that without it, I would remain the way that I was. I was shaking, and it was very hard to recall how I managed to get back to my car or any of those sorts of things. And that was my moment of conversion, if you will. And there wasn't a book involved, there wasn't a list involved, there wasn't an audio recording involved. There was an image that said, I'm here, I see you. What are we going to do about it together? And that was the beginning of my searching. Okay, 5 minutes in. Is this going all right? Okay. Cut to a few years later, after meddling with a few different Buddhist groups, I stumbled across Triratna. And again, my experience is limited a little to Sydney, Australia, and the ordination process there. And so what I'm about to outline may not be pertinent to your ordination process or anyone in the order here. But what I discovered was that we sat around in circles a lot, and we drank tea, and we talked about things quite a lot. We read books, we listened to talks, we talked about things, and we occasionally even talked about our own practice. And we meditated a lot. There's a very strong culture in Sydney that, you know, if you don't attend the 2-week meditation sessions with 9 hours of meditation a day, then, you know, you really need to look at yourself as a Buddhist. And I was kind of gobsmacked by this. You know, I have a degree in English literature and history and semiotics, so I'm used to sitting in circles, talking, having cups of tea and talking about ideas. I don't need to do that again. I want to release. I want to be free, and I want everyone I know to be free. I want to lose that which holds me back. I want to be better. And I just found myself getting incredibly tight and tense. Oh, and I could not wait until those evening pujas. I could not wait because I didn't have anyone else telling me what to think, do, feel, say, understand. There was the Buddha, there was the Dharma, there was the Sangha, there was my aspiration, and I could just go and hear the other men go. The rest of them were like, oh, I might skip the puja tonight. And I was getting really resentful because it was the most important part of the day. No, I want to give a trigger warning for something that I'm about to say, which may sound quite shocking to you. And I've been repeating it, and it does tend to cause a reaction. I remember saying to an order member, I just need to be in the shrine room. I really need to be in the shrine room. And this order member said to me, quite a senior order member who I will not name, said to me, I wasn't Bodhidasa then, but I'll say Bodhidasa. They said, Bodhidasa, you do know that ritual puja is just for the women, right? They're more suited to it. So I had to take that in. I had to wonder what judgment of my gender was being made at that point. And so I went and did a very, very long puja, and I cried all the way through it because how dare he? And my mother taught me one thing very well, and that is that when you are resentful, you should hold on to it as long as you possibly can. Like grabbing the blade of a knife and squeezing your hand very, very tightly. And so I kept that resentment for a very long time, which probably explains why my ordination process was 11.5 years. And then decided, once I was ordained, that no, rather than hold that resentment any longer, 2 minutes to go, I'd write a book. The world doesn't need more outrage and resentment. It needs education. So as my main practice is puja, and I do it daily, and write pujas and share them with people, I needed to prove that pujas are not just for women, but they're also for gay men like myself. And they're also for everyone. And they are also more than just an added extra of theatre or a series of 7 moods. Puja is a wisdom and insight practice, but you may not know that. If you read the book, you may realise that it is. That was something that Kulapriya pointed out to me earlier. So that's kind of why I wrote the book. It's astonishing how freeing of that resentment was, and how powerful it's been to take it even deeper, to take my understanding even deeper, and to realize that puja, ritual, devotional practice is not just about having strong emotional feelings, but it is actually a very powerful practice of breaking the boundary of self and other. 10 minutes, not bad. Okay. Questions?
What about the language? I'd like to know what hum means. Why do we say hum? What does it do in the puja?
Well, I'm going to take the questions, I'm going to collect them, and then I'm going to see how they go together, and then I'll hopefully say something cogent. Can I take that one first?
Yeah.
Okay. Just hum. You want to know about hum?
Well, that always seems the one that's most mysterious somehow. It's in a lot of mantras. It comes up a lot, but it's nobody's ever really explained what it means or how to say it.
I might read something from my book for the hell of that. Yeah. Any other questions?
How do you generate that connection? I mean, you had the connection with Avalokiteshvara automatically. I've struggled for 20 years trying to develop something like that,
Mm,
which is why I struggle with puja, because I'm still searching for that connection.
mm, mm. Okay, I think I know a way we can help with that.
Thank you.
Just say 3 almighty Hums and call me in the morning. No, it's a bit more than that. Any other questions?
When I said I just don't get much from puja, I think qualified said that I really like mantras. And the thing that puts me off puja, I think, is it's the words. It's just saying lots of words, and the words don't connect, whereas a mantra does. And I wonder if that. So, if you have any sense of what, for me, that's a personal thing that I really relate to a mantra, but not to the rest of the puja.
Okay, what I might do to help us with that is I might declassify what the words are. That might be helpful. If I was to strip the puja bare, the sevenfold puja, the main ritual we do here, for those of you who are unfamiliar, if I strip it bare, that might make more sense. We can try. All right. Any other questions?
What are the best conditions for you to write puja?
Best conditions. Okay. How much time do we have, Kulapriya?
Half an hour?
Half an hour, correct. I might start with connections, developing connections. Yeah. One of the main problems that we can have with generating connections is that we're all too clever. And I think that a lot of our training, my training in English literature, history and semiotics, and a little bit of Icelandic for some reason, one of the reasons is that we train ourselves to be able to label things particularly well. We train ourselves to be able to take an image, a symbol, and a particular collection of ideas. We like to be able to pin them down, rather like the Victorian naturalists would take butterflies and pin them to boards. They're beautiful, but they can't fly. And I think we are very clever, and we can look at something like this, for example, this beautiful standing statue here. We might look at it and then be able to kind of meta tag it or hashtag various bits of it. And we're very, very good at wrapping these symbols and these ideas in words. But those words themselves don't approximate it. They don't even really point to the moon in some ways. And in a way, we have to unlearn how to see. And then we can unlearn what we think we should be feeling. And so one of the ways, so my example with the image of Avalokiteshvara, which curiously enough, the nun said to me, the nun that was there said to me, oh, it's called Kuan Yin, which is fine. And then she said, just think of it as Mary. So, okay. No thanks. To train yourself to think and to look at images of this kind and to watch the tendency to label, to watch the tendency to like or not like. And then listen and watch again and keep looking again. Keep trying to show interest and curiosity. Oh, what's this? What's this? Not labeling and naming. This is a preliminary to connecting with imagery of this kind. Then what I find my life's useful to do is to do that with other people. Sit with other people and then look at the images and then share what you see. And in every situation I've done this, other people will see different things than you. Things that you cannot see. That in itself is really profound, because it shows you that you have limits in your ability to see, limits to be able to name and observe. When it comes to connecting more emotionally to figures of this kind, it really does depend on your temperament. I have a poetic soul, so I always go to early texts. I like to go to songs written by masters. I like to read them aloud. I like to recite them, and I like to draw them. So I like to draw figures myself. I like to draw them quickly. I like to draw them, and I immerse myself as much as possible in images of particular Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Go to galleries and find them, and again, don't label, don't analyze, don't explain. Be in the presence of. But the key thing to connection, once you manage to get the words out of the way, once you manage to remove the labeling and the analysis, the key thing to do in these situations is to, like I've shared with you tonight, remember as much as you can with as much of your sensory experience as possible. Remember that moment when the Dharma entered your life. Remember that. It might be in the pit of depression, or it could be it could be an intellectual curiosity. Remember that moment, because that figure, that image that you may be drawn to, particularly if you're an ordained member of our order and you have a particular figure that you give attention to, their qualities are present in that moment, in a sense. The Buddha is present in that moment where the Dharma becomes part of your life. If you bring yourself back again and again to that moment where your life changed, where you set out upon a path of spiritual development, if you bring yourself back to that moment again and again and again, and it's an authentic moment, gratitude will arise. Gratitude, love, appreciation will arise. Connection will arise. And we don't do it enough, in my opinion. We don't honor that which has set the trajectory of our life on. Yeah. Has that been of help to you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, one thing you mentioned was that word should. Right early on, you said, and don't worry about what you should be feeling in the future. I think that resonated.
I'm a Buddhist, not a shouldist.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone has, this is also a bold statement, maybe this is my Australian coming out. No one has the right to tell you what you should or should not be feeling. That was the abusive environment in which I grew up in. No one has the right to tell you what you should be feeling. You could be feeling something, definitely. There's a different tone and power behind the word should. Could is an invitation. Should is a persuasion. Yeah. Yes.
I'm so with you on the aspect of remember that which sends you on this trajectory.
Yes.
It's so rich and such a good thing to do. But I haven't yet understood from you what is the connection between that, where I agree, and puja. That I find difficult to get any close to tears or emotional uplift.
No, that's very revealing what you just said. Can you say that again, please?
Tell me what I said.
About feeling tears or emotional uplift.
Yeah.
Is that what puja's?
Tears are very positive. Like it's a mixed mood of
yes.
Gratitude, relief that you've suddenly discovered the meaning
Yes.
a meaning in life. And
Yes.
and you want to cry and laugh at the same time.
Yes.
Now, you haven't made the case for me yet that puja does that.
Oh, okay. Fair point. Okay, so let's strip the puja back, shall we? Let's get rid of the evil that I've heaped up through my. Let's get rid of that for a moment. Okay. So let's do that now. The form of the sevenfold puja or the seven-lined prayer, the text of it that we practice here in Triratna does come from Shantideva's Bodhicharyavatara. Yeah. But the actual form of that structure, that seven structure, is actually much earlier than Shantideva. It actually comes from the Gandhavya chapter of the Avatamsaka Sutra. It is a text called the King of Prayers, or the King of Aspirational Prayers. This is a text that Atisha urged all practitioners to recite as a preliminary practice before they begin their process of spiritual growth. Now, I raise this because the seven pieces that come from this original text are identical to the sevenfold puja in terms of their meaning, the overall point of them, away from the flowery language, away from the poetry, away from the allegory and metaphor. Okay, so this is a very simple overview of what is being asked of you in a ritual, a Buddhist ritual of the sevenfold puja. Each verse is essentially pointing to one of these seven things. So, the preliminary, 0, if you will, before number 1, is to have that connection with the Dharma that I just raised a moment ago, that suggestion of you recollecting with a sense of gratitude why you practice. Yeah. Point 1, what we call the worship verse. You give. You adorn it. You treasure it. You want it to be beautiful. And you want it to be beautiful for everybody. With Mandara, blue lotus, and jasmine, with all flowers pleasing and fragrant. The first verse is about you adorning that which has so uplifted and inspired you. Yeah. You offer, you make place for it in your life. Those offerings are symbolic and you place them in front of you on a shrine. You are making space for the Dharma in your life in that first verse. Yeah. Second verse, salutation. Second verse you are saying is, I will remember this. I will remember to do this. As many atoms as there are in 1,000 million worlds. I will remember this. I won't just remember when it's convenient. I won't just remember when it's the end of a retreat on an evening. I will remember what my commitments are. I will remember what my practices are. I'll remember my promises. And I will remember the Buddha. Yeah? Third verse. You are where I will turn to when things go to crap. I will think of you, Buddha. I will think of what you've taught, and I will go to my friends when life gets really hard. And the precepts are the rules of engagement with all of those beings and with everyone we meet. That's what we're really doing. We are recollecting that moment of conversion, that moment of significance for us. We are adorning it with attention and beauty. We're reminding ourselves of its significance, and we know how to bring it about in our lives by practicing in particular ways, by practicing the precepts. Yeah. Now, I do that part of the puja every day in the morning. That's my morning practice. Then I live my day still within the context of a puja. Yeah. Then by the end of the day, we come to the point where I have to engage in an ethical inventory. Because we have to look at ourselves with honesty and with integrity and say to ourselves, I screw up. We can't just exist in a world of a ritual of feeling good and having tears. And, you know, it's not just about having a high, intense emotional experience. We have to look at ourselves with honesty and be willing to be ashamed of the things that we do that we shouldn't do, that are not in line with those things that we have aspired to at the beginning of that puja. Otherwise, not all of us is present. Then we acknowledge that there are amazing people around us who are exemplars, who are also walking that practice and path. We too. So we celebrate. And then it comes down to the really pointy end. The last parts of the puja are, we want there to be a continuity of practice. We don't want the Dharma just to fade from our lives or just to become a hobby. We want to receive the teachings that will continue to inspire and challenge the views that we have about the world. That's entreaty and supplication. And lastly, getting back to the points I wrote earlier, we give it all up. We hang on to nothing. We don't hold to an emotional state or a response. We don't try and get anything out of the puja. It doesn't do anything for you because it's not supposed to. You don't like it. It doesn't do anything for me. That's because it's not supposed to do anything for you. It's supposed to help you do everything for everybody else. Puja is a training in releasing of self and devoting to your ideal, devoting to the people around you who have similar ideals, and giving everything you can. Giving, giving, giving. It's not about receiving. And if you don't like it, that's not the point of it. The point of it is to reduce that wanting to hold, that wanting to have. It's all about giving. So I'll just summarize. Step 0 is making that contact with why this matters in the first place. The puja only really has significance if there is that emotional heart of connection with, why are you here? Like I said to you earlier, why are you here? Before you go into a puja, why are you so grateful? 1, you adorn it with beauty and attention. 2, you turn to it and you tell yourself, I'm going to make this an important part of my life. 3, you'll commit to turn to this again and again and follow the practices that are laid out. Then you acknowledge where you don't, you have to bring all of yourself, even those shady parts of yourself, with honesty and integrity. Then you celebrate yourself and everyone around you who is making skillful progress. You ask everything around you to remain so that you can practice and you will always have that connection. And you give everything up. You do not hold on to an expectation. You don't want anything in return. You let go for the benefit of everyone. Because you realize holding on to anything, even wanting a particular experience and grasping for it, is an anathema to what the Buddha was talking about. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
Now, if you know what those things are, the words don't matter. You can do puja without the words.
Yes.
So do puja without the words. Puja is a wisdom practice of following those 7 stages towards relinquishing the holding of expectation and relinquishing self for the benefit of others. I think that's called the bodhicitta. Has that been helpful?
Very helpful. Thank you.
Sorry if I get a bit strident. I get a bit strident about this because every time as I'm speaking, I'm hearing that person saying, just, and I just get so kind of like that Drapani, dark, I'm in dark blue. I just want to go, no, How dare you? Sorry, I should calm down. Question. So,
The way you're talking about connection and puja, to me, feels like a living presence. Because I think that the way you're talking about connection means you go beyond the form and there's something alive there. And the way you were describing the puja there feels the same way. It's as though it's a living thing to you.
thank you for clarifying my experience. Yes, I agree. It is. And I do need to come back to the gentleman at the back. You were asking me, I had yet to convince you. I had not made a case for something. I wondered if I have made an attempt at doing that.
You have made an attempt.
So I'm not getting a first then, okay?
Just wondering.
I'm just wondering if I leaving someone dissatisfied at the back.
What's his name?
Yes,
Hridaya Mani.
Hridaya
Mani.
Hridaya Mani. Very nice to meet you, Hridaya Mani. Can you tell me more about the error that I may have made or the absence that I've made? How can I help you?
Attentive. You held me, even though you took it into words.
Yes.
But the words were close enough to my own experience that I could relate.
Okay.
Experience I could
Thank you.
relate to somebody, the way your words were trying to describe your passion.
Thank you.
So yeah, you it was a good attempt.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, sir.
You mentioned you do part of the puja in the morning, part in the evening, and then you said you kind of live within the puja.
Yes.
More about the bit in the middle.
Yeah, okay. So as a member of the order, I have a particular practice of a meditation form. And for me, during the middle part of the day, and you know, I'm lucky enough I actually work in a Buddhist context. I actually work in Australia's only Buddhist primary and high school. I keep recollection of that figure alive for me during the day, and I recite that mantra mentally during the day, throughout the day, as a means of being in contact with that. And that helps me be attentive to my actions, and it helps me be attentive to what I see as the consequences of my actions around me. So by the time of the day when I get back on the train, I'm sitting on a train surrounded by vaping teens, I am reflecting, looking back over each of the practices and precepts that I have, and I am doing an inventory of those and holding myself accountable to what I did, and celebrating celebrating things that I did successfully, and also celebrating the things that my students did or my colleagues did during the day. I find that helpful at the end of the day when I'm often quite tired. It certainly shifts my thinking for the day. Just to be clear, I'm not suggesting that puja only becomes an internal personal practice. I'm suggesting that this is a way of bringing puja ritual sacredness into the day, but I'm still advocating for group practice of ritual and in more formal settings. Yeah.
On supplementary, do you meditate adjacent to these puja sessions?
Because I am a depressive who struggles in the mornings, another good way to get up in the morning is to do ritual practice. To start the day, I'm an afternoon evening meditator. So a chanting, prayer and mantra is my morning way of not wishing to, pardon the double negative, not wishing to not exist, which is my general state in the mornings. Yeah. Yes. I'll come back to the questions. Om Ahung. Priya, time?
Yeah, 5
5 minutes for Hung. Okay. One of the, in the book, there's a particular methodology that I've used throughout the book. And actually it's more precise in here in the notes. There's something called the 4 levels, sometimes called the 4 activities. And this is a methodology that comes to us from the Tibetan tradition. And here we go. These 4 levels are ways of accessing symbols and accessing meaning. They're traditionally known as the outer level, the inner level, the secret level, and sometimes called the ultimate level. Yeah. And to access a symbol like Hum, like the mudra, or the gesture that the Buddha figure is making here, like a candle even, to access the power of these symbols, these 4 levels are both sequential, but also sort of unified to fully appreciate the significance and to activate that power of that symbol or that image. Yeah. I think we can often, if we have a sort of avaricious nature, we want to go straight to the secret one and the ultimate one because we feel, you know, we can do that. We're up to that. All of them need to be present. In the book, I slightly rename them. The outer level is to experience the symbol. Like I mentioned earlier, just looking, just listening, not analyzing, being present with. So I call that experiencing, just experiencing the sound. Hum. Yeah, when you hear that, what comes to you? Just hear it. Hum.
Energy.
Energy. The second level is the understanding level, the inner level. This is where we start to apply those skills that we already have so well. How do we spell Hum? Why is it spelled hum? What color does the symbol look like? What language is it written in? How many parts does it have? Where do we find it? Which Buddha figure is Hum associated with? This is moving into that intellectual, the mind is involved. Yeah. We start to feel as well, but we mostly try to think and gather. But the danger is we forget to experience it. We think that somehow that level is better than that level. Yeah. The secret level I refer to as the applying level, where we start to apply what is the practice and the teaching that is embedded in that symbol. What's the thing we do? What is the praxis? What do we actually do? Not just think about and experience. What do we do with that? I can't say much about the ultimate because that I call realizing. That is when you are Hung. And I'm not there yet. So Hung, how did you describe Hung?
Energy.
Energy. Yeah. And we often chant Hung when we salute a shrine.
Mm-hmm.
Om, Ah, Hung.
Yeah. But then we say Om, Ah, Hung. Whereas in a mantra, or when you're chanting something like Om Vajrapani Hum, it's a hum, it's got a vibrational sort of feeling to it. It's a very different, seems to be a very different.
I don't know this for a fact, and I've not been ordained as long as many of my esteemed order members here. I wonder if that Om Ah Hum, that lower hum, might have something more to do with deference.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Bhante chanted it that way out of a sense of deference. The tone was more because we're bowing at that point. Maybe, maybe others would have the answer to that. But in other mantras, it is a punchier sound, isn't it? It's got more
vibrating.
Yes, it does. So Hung on one level, if you think on that experiencing level as energy, then we have that experience of it as being it's placed in certain ways in mantras. It has a significance. There's a kind of impetus at the end of mantras, a kind of push at the end of the mantras. You know, it's made up of several different parts, sometimes 3, sometimes 5, depending on how it's drawn. But the key thing with Hung is to look at how to apply Hung. What is the application of Hung? It's a reminder for us to watch the contents and activities of mind. Be aware of the activities, contents, and the food that goes into your mind. Chanting of Hung is that reminder to look at the quality, the tone, the experience of mind and what goes into it. That's the kind of practice point of Hung. And when we chant Om Hung in front of a shrine, we are orienting the mind and the mind in this space towards what this represents and what our future represents, in a sense. Yeah. So the 4 levels are how I work through the elements of puja, the elements of ritual in the book, and also how to interpret and work with and become more closely connected to images of Buddhas, bodhisattvas, and other kind of forms that you find in the Buddhist tradition. And they are canonical from a particular school of Tibetan Buddhism that Bhante was connected with. I think I've covered the questions to some extent that were raised. So after we're going to have a break, is that correct?
Yes.
After the break, we'll be moving into some discussion groups. And between now and then, we will locate the kind of question to tease out in those discussion groups to help you with what we're exploring tonight. And if you're interested in the book, I believe there are copies here, and I'm very happy to sign them if that is helpful for you. Anything else, Kulapriya?
No, just to say thank you very much for fielding those questions so deeply and so thoroughly. And just to remind everybody that was just such a snapshot of everything contained in the book. So, and to remind you, I did say it was worth reading. So now you have an experience of why I feel it was a book worth reading. So thank you very much for that.